Om Badram Karanebihi Shrunyamadevah Badram Pashyema Akshabihi Rejatraha Sthirairangair Tushtuvam Sastanobihi Vyashema Devahitayadayuhu Swastinah Indro Vrudrashravaha Swastinah Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastinah Tarksho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Bruhaspatirdadatu Om Shanti 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 Yo antah pravishya mama vacha imam prashuptam sanjeevayati akila shakti tada swadamnam anyam shtahasta charana shravanatvagadin pranan namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam लसतु श्रीमदानन्दतीर्थेन्दुर्नो हृदम्बरे यद्वचश्चन्द्रिका स्वान्तसन्तापं विनिकृन्तति पदवाक्यप्रमाणज्ञान् प्रणम्य शिरसा गुरून् व्याकरिष्ये यथाबोधं विष्णुतत्त्वविनिर्णयम्. So good morning, good afternoon and good evening to folks who have joined the 26th session on Mundaka Upanishad, which is also called as Atharvana Upanishad. So before we get started, let's think about all the rishis, Atharva, Angira, Satyavaha, Angirasa, Shuanaka, and all the acharyas we've given the bhashyas on this particular beautiful, beautiful Upanishad. The Devata is Aksharanamaka Paramatma and the Chandas primarily is Anushtu. So currently we are doing Dvitiya Mundake Prathama Kandaha. So we left about a fortnight ago. So I am catching up where I left about 2 weeks ago. So let's think about what these mantras are. There are 10 verses in this. So we are currently, in the 6th, 7th kind of transition area. So how does it go? It's a beautiful Mundaka, as you know. Tade tat satyam yata sudiptat pavakat vishvulingaha sahasrashaha prabhavante sarupaha tata aksharad vividaha somya bhavaha prajayante tatra chaiva apiyanti. दिव्यो हि अमूर्तः पुरुषः स बाह्याभ्यन्तरो ह्यजः अप्राणो हि मनः शुभ्रो हि अक्षरात् परः एतस्मात् जायते प्राणो मनः सर्व इन्द्रियाणि च कं वायुर्ज्योतिरापः पृथिवी विश्वस्य दारिणी अग्निर्मूर्धा चक्षुषी चन्द्रसूर्ययो दिशः श्रोत्रे वाक् विवृताश्च वेदाः वायुः प्राणो हृदयं विश्वमस्य पद्भ्यां पृथिवी हि एष सर्वभूतान्तरात्मा तस्माद् अग्निः समिद्धो यस्य सूर्यः सोमात् पर्जन्यः ओषधयः पृथिव्यां पुमान् रेतः सिञ्चति योषितायां बह्वी प्रजाः पुरुषात् सम्प्रसूताः तस्माद् ऋचः साम यजुंषि दीक्षाः यज्ञाश्च सर्वे क्रतवो दक्षिणाश्च संवत्सरश्च यजमानश्च लोकाः सोमो यत्र पवते यत्र सूर्यः तस्माच्च देवा बहुधा संप्रसूताः साध्याः मनुष्याः पशवो वयांसि प्राणापानो व्रीहि यवौ तपश्च श्रद्धा सत्यं ब्रह्मचर्यं विदिष्ट. So these are the 7 verses. So we did the first half of the 7th verse, and today hopefully we will tackle the second half of the 7th verse. So what is this Khanda all about? Remember, it started with Tade tat satyam. So that, yetat, which is very close as my antaryamin. Tat, yetat, tat, tataha, that which is all pervasive in time, space, and guna, is inside me. Yetat, which is very close to me. And what is it called? Satyam. So we have spent the etymology of Satyam on a number of occasions, and that Satyam primarily describes the eightfold cosmic dispensation of the universe by Paramatma. Yeah, for Jadas and Jivas, the eightfold dispensation. So that is what this Kanda is talking about, where Angirasa is instructing or teaching Shuanaka that this Satyam does a lot of things in this universe. When things are being created, a lot of stuff is going on here in the universe, which Angirasa is giving us an opportunity to contemplate and think about it. We don't do it, but I think we should do it, because according to Veda Vyasa, our founding forefather, the definition of Brahman is what? Janmadhyasya yataha. He who is a creator, etc. of the universe. That etc. of the universe is included in this word Satyam. So if you think about this equation, and I've got this figure here where you have the Narayana and then you have Lakshmi. So we can look at Lakshmi. What is the creation of Lakshmi? Lakshmi is as pervasive as Narayana. We know that she's as pervasive as Narayana. But there is an element of creation for her when the universe comes into being. What is that creation? Inducing Lakshmi to prompt creation is her creation, says the Shastras. Okay? So that is her creation. And what does Lakshmi do? Shri Bhu Durga, then there is a Mula Prakriti, and then that goes into volition, and then that starts mixing up, and then the Brahmanda comes into being. Yeah. So the creation of the material world with Mula Prakriti, that is first thing that happens. Yeah. And we have done all those 24 tattvas that emerge. What about the jivas? You and me and all the Tattvabhimani Devatas, we are all jivas of various levels. You have the highest Tattvabhimani Devatas called as Rijus or Chaturmukha, Vayu, and that category. And we have the lowest jivas like you and me. Okay? So that whole family of jivas are also emerging out of Brahman, and they have a creation, which is what Angirasa is telling Shuanaka. What is that creation? So first, he talks about the Tattvabhimani Devatas. So all the chaps who are in charge or who have the portfolios to run the various components of the universe. So these guys emerge from Brahman from his various portions is the contemplation. Yeah, and Angirasa has gone into great detail describing where do they come from and what is the sequence in which they appear. So that has also been described by Angirasa. So emergence of Tattvabhimani Devatas. So as I said, Tattvabhimani Devatas are also jivas. Then you have other devatas, exalted sentient beings across the universe, not just Tattvabhimani Devatas. There are so many other, exalted sentient beings scattered around the universe that has been described in our Veda. So these guys also emerge. Then, of course, there is the emergence of ordinary souls like us. Okay? We have been in the womb of Brahman before creation. And once the universe is prompted into creation, once the Brahmanda comes into being, and the Tattvabhimani Devatas have also brought about various other components of the universe, and the Brahmanda is now ready for creation, then the souls get attached to various bodies, right? So those various bodies is what we call spindanda, various material bodies. This body is material. There is no doubt about that in this audience. So the creation of the material bodies for the souls to reside, that is Pindanda. So Brahmanda and Pindanda come into being. So this is beautiful. So now we understand how this whole universe is bringing about and how this Brahman's Jnana, Kriya, Jnana, Icha, and how it is playing in this. Okay? Now the question is, once the souls are in this body, what do they do and how? And what has Brahman done for the souls once they are in the Pindanda? Yeah. So that is what is the next line. So this is a new verse for us today. And again, as I've told you before, Angirasa's explanation about creation is very logical and it's very sequential. So now he is going to take about the Pindanda, the jivas that are in Pindanda. What has Paramatma done for these souls which are in Pindanda? So let's do this verse. Tasmacha devaha bahuda samprasutaha sadhyaha manushyaha pashavo vayamsi. So now talking about us, you and me, once we are residing in a body, what is then happening? Prana, apanau, vrihi yavo tapashcha shraddha satyam brahmacharyam vidishta. So Angirasa says, this Paramatma is so gracious that he just not gives us the Pindanda, but he has done so many other things for the body in which we reside so that we can do our sadhanas using this Sharira. That is what Angirasa is reminding us. So he's saying, Prana Apanau. Okay. So before we go into that, I'm going to call upon one of us to recite 15:14 for us, please. So who wants to go for it? 15:14. Pragnesh, go for it.
Thank you. Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamasrita Pranapana Samayukta Pachamyannam Chaturvidam.
Thank you, Pragnesh. Beautiful. So look at this very important verse of Gita, 15:14. So again, when you look at the Upanishads and the Gitas, there are common pairs of words that appear. So here, for example, Prana and Apana, they appear together. So similarly in Gita 15:14, Prana, Apana appear to her. Here, okay, so let's look at this. Let's remind ourselves. We have done Gita 15 years ago now. So what does it say? Aham vai Shuanaka bhutva. Aham means aheyatvat aham, that which is undiscardable. That is me. That is Antaratman, says Krishna. Aham. Aheyatvat aham nama is what Acharya has resolved. Aham. Yeah. Vai means stresses. Shwa means dog. Naraha means man. Bhutva. Okay. Aham Vaishwanaraha. I am the Agni Narayana of the Yajna, which Shaunaka is pretty good at in his Yajnashala. Vishwanara Sambanditvad. All these souls, I am always inside them and I'm regulating them is what. There are three meanings of this Aham Vaishwanaraha. I just wanted to remind this. And the gastric fire is called Vaishwanaraha in a very superficial sense, but actually it is the Agni Narayana which is there. What does this guy do? Chaturvidam annam pachami. What are the 4 types of food? That is also described in our Shastras. The food that is chewed, the food that is sucked, the food that is licked, or the food that is drunk. Yeah. Bhaikshyam, Bhojyam, Lehyam, Shoshyam. Okay. Look at Katha Upanishad. Again, the sequence, the pairs are very similar. Urdhvam pranam unnayati, apanam pratyagasyati. And then there is the third, next line is the most beautiful, important verse of Katha Upanishad. Madhye vamanam asinam vishve devaha upasate. Yeah. Go back to that particular session we did about Katha Upanishad. So, urdhvam pranam unnayati, apanam pratyagasyati. So, prana and apana go together here. In Gita also prana, apana. And the same thing Angirasa is saying prana, apano. Okay, so prana and apana. So this is beautiful. So Angirasa is basically saying this prana and apana are also created by this Akshara Namaka Paramatma. They have also come into manifestation. In this universe, when the Pindanda have also come in, prana, apana and others. Yeah. So who is going to share very briefly the concept of prana and apana and 3 other ideas that are described, pancha prana, right? So who wants to tell us what is prana and what is apana before we move to the next slide? Anyone wants to share the ideas, please? So, sorry, audio is a bit blurred. I don't know who it was.
Dhyana, Udana, Samana, Srikant Rao.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so what is prana and apana, Srikantji?
Prana is the life force, and Apana is, I'm thinking it's the energy.
All right, thank you very much. So these ideas are there in the Upanishads and the Vedas everywhere. So just watch out these pairs. So what is that? Okay, so this takes us to, and again we have done it when we have done Isha Upanishad, where we discussed in great detail who this Matarishva is. So I just wanted to bring it in here with a few modifications with regards to what Angirasa is telling us. So this is the physiology and philosophy of breathing. Okay, so we are in this Pindanda. And then the jiva is there. When the jiva is in the pindanda, how do we know that this body is alive? Because it's breathing, isn't it? So that is why we know that this body is alive. If a body is not breathing, then we say it's a dead body. Okay. So this prana and apana become very important to understand. That is because the pindanda is there. Now the pindanda is getting some volition to do stuff. Okay. So apana is the downward movement and prana is the upward movement. So this downward movement and upward movement of the pindanda is what Angirasa is talking about. So the downward movement is called apana and the upward movement is called prana. Okay. So for those of us who are very familiar with the neurology or the neurophysiology of this, we know that the respiratory centers, there is the expiratory center in the brainstem, there is the inspiratory center, there is the apneustic center, there is a pneumotaxic center, and all that the neurologists talk about. So what is the primary function of that? It is to send the nerve impulses to the diaphragm so that the diaphragm moves down, which is called as the inspiration, and the diaphragm moves up, which is called expiration. Okay, so this is apana and prana when you look at it from a physiological perspective. Okay, so this is fascinating. So in philosophy, as we all know, we understand the physiology. This is what is happening, lower movement and upward movement. But then from a philosophical perspective, we should ask the question, why does it have to be like this? Why does this have to be that there has to be something called the diaphragm, there has to be the lungs, and things have to move up and down? Okay. So why is the bigger philosophical question? Why does it have to be like this? And who controls this? Think about this. So I might have introduced to you the bellowing analogy of a blacksmith. So here is a blacksmith. He uses this bellowing to light up this fireplace where he can melt the metal, right? So when he pushes down, that is apana. When he pulls up, that is prana. So a bellowing analogy of the blacksmith is a very good example of what is apana and prana. So lower movement, upward movement is apana and prana. So now the question is, are we alive because we are breathing, or we are breathing because we are alive? So you can think about this idea, not for today's discussion, but you can think about it. Why are we alive? Whether we are because we are alive because we are breathing, or we are breathing because we are alive. So there's a lot of discussions in the Upanishads about this. So now let us look at the Katha Upanishad to come back and understand what is it that Angirasa is talking about here. Prana apano. So there is a pair. So we got a chat box. Somebody, okay. Okay, so prana and apana. So let us look at Katha Upanishad. What is Katha Upanishad saying? Urdhvam pranamunnayati. Urdhvam, upward. Yeah. Apanam pratyagasyati. So Katha Upanishad gives you this definition. And of course, as Srikanji mentioned, you have Udana, Vyana, and Samana, and Apana, Prana. So there are 5 components of this, 5 forms of Prana, or Mukhya Prana, or Vayu has got 5 components. And so does the 5 forms. Why does Prana have 5 forms? Because we know that the Paramatma has 5 components. That is the Mula Rupa Narayana, then Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshana, Vasudeva. There are 5 forms of Supreme. There are 5 forms of Prana. Think about all this. At some point when we do Taittiriya Upanishad, we can catch up with these ideas in very great details. Okay. So Paramatma does this. Once we get the Pindanda, he just doesn't leave like that. He again ensures that there are these systems in place in the Pindanda that we are inspiring and we are expiring, and the body's metabolism. That's all. That is why we need it, isn't it? The apana and prana and apana, inspiration, expiration for oxygen and all the metabolism. Okay, so what does metabolism include? You can have 5 components again. Remember, 5: digestion, absorption, catabolism, anabolism, and excretion. So our philosophers say that Chaturvidam annam pachami, that Pragnesh Bhadji recited 1514, is digestion and absorption of food, 4 types of food that we are eating. Catabolism and anabolism is included in the prana, which is essential for, the bones, flesh, body, and everything to be sustained. And then apana is for the urination and defecation and getting rid of all the unwanted stuff. So the process of metabolism was also established, so that the body can be sustained by Paramatma has established all this, is what Angirasa is saying. We don't think about these issues. We just assume that it is there. We are inspiring and expiring and all the metabolism is happening in our body, but we don't think about it. But our philosophers, our rishis are so exalted that they want us to think about why is it happening like this. Okay. So this prana, we have again discussed in the Isha Upanishad, go back to it. This prana who ensures that these things are happening is again under the control of his Antaryaman in his 5 forms, as I told you in the previous slide. So, Urdhvam pranam unnayati, apanam pratyagasyati, madhye vamanam asinam, vishve devaha upasate. So when that inspiration and expiration, right, the metabolism. So again, as I said, this is a very logical sequence. So this prana and apana, so the inspiration and the expiration is happening for what? The process of metabolism was established so that the body can be sustained, right? This process of metabolism is there in the pindanda, so that these bodies are sustained. By what? By the food that we eat. So immediately Angirasa says, even the food that is required for the body to sustain is also created by Paramatma. And he takes a pair there. Vrihi, Yavau. So Vrihi means rice. Yavau could be barley. but it is one of the Oshadis. Yeah. So in the ancient Vedic times, Yavo was a very important food that was given in Yajna. Purodasha, that is a classic example of Yavo, Purodasha. Yeah, that was given into the Yajna. The closest resemblance on modern times could be barley. So our Rishi said, prana apano pair was created by Paramatma, so that the body is, when they eat, what do they eat? Vrihi Yavo. Okay, so when they eat Vrihi and Yavo, then they need to process what they've eaten so that the Pindanda is sustained, so that they can do their onward journey, they can do their sadhana. So the instruments required for the sadhana is also done by Paramatma. So this is, very physiological, isn't it? Only when there is food, there is activity. When the stomach is full, then only there is philosophy. Okay, so this is very, very important. One's stomach should be full. Otherwise, there is no philosophy. Nobody cares about philosophy. Our rishis knew that very well. When the stomach is full, then there is philosophy. Okay, abundant food is available when there is prosperity. And Vedic civilization was enormously wealthy. Okay, that is a fact. Our Vedic civilization, our ancient Bharat or India, was enormously wealthy. And it is only when that country was, when that place was so economically so vibrant, then all this philosophy and everything else emerged in ancient India. Okay. So this was interesting, and I was looking at the economic history of ancient Bharat. Okay, incredible stuff. So if you look at 1000 AD, okay, Bharat was contributing to more than 25% of the world's GDP was coming from Bharat, India. And if you take from 1500 to 1700, it was between 22 to 25% of the world GDP. Okay. Before 1000 AD, this 25% world GDP, the economic contribution of ancient Vedic India was more than 25%. We don't know what that estimation is, but it is more than 25%. So if you look at our Upanishads, for example, take an example of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, right? You remember that Brihadaranyaka Upanishad that we talk about, where Yajnavalkya goes to this king. And the king says, and the king calls out for a conference, right? And he says, whoever is the most knowledgeable about Brahman, I shall give them 1000 cows and bunch of gold coins in each horns of these cows. So that was the kind of prize that was being given to the Vedic rishis by the king. So think about the wealth that was there. 1000 cows with gold coins, not mere stories, but these are real facts. And Vedas describe chariots being made of gold. Yeah, that was there in the Vedic civilization. And in the Vedic times, such was the GDP. More than 25% of the world's GDP was from Bharat. And not surprisingly, it is only when the country is prosperous that there is philosophy. When there's philosophy, the Shastras and philosophies, they actually prosper. Then what happened after the 1700s? Then the loot began. We all know what that loot is. The loot began after the 17th century until 1947. That loot of more than 45 trillion, we are told, $45 trillion, that loot happened after the 17th century. Now Bharat is emerging back. Okay, so everything happens in cycles, right? But the key there that we need to think about here is, when the stomach is full with food, Vrihi and Yavo, when the jiva is in the pindanda, this metabolism happens, prana apana. Okay. So when this happens, when the stomach is full and the metabolism is happening, then the body is functioning. That's what we do. Tapashta, Shraddha, Satyam, Brahmacharyam, Vidishta. All these things happen only when the stomach is full with food. Yeah. Ask anybody to go and recite the Vedas or recite the Gitas with no food for 3 days. Nobody is going to do that. Yeah. No food, no philosophy. Period. Yeah. And our rishis knew that, and that is the fact of life. So tapashta, even the tapashta was created by Paramatma. And yes, it is a natural consequence after we eat, and that the prana apana. What is tapashta? Tapa alochane. That is the contextual relevance. The meaning of this verse is tapa alochane. Alochane means to think deeper concepts of life, to think about what is the purpose. Kim karanam brahma, kutasmajata, jivamakeva, kuta sampratishta, or Shvetashvatara Upanishad. When is those bigger questions we are going to think? Only when our stomach is full, not otherwise. Okay? So the tapa alochane happens there. The tapas happens only when these things are satisfied. And of course, if you go to Gita chapter 17, Krishna then, over several verses from 14 to 19, check that out. He talks about various types of tapas. Shariram tapaha, Vangmayam tapaha, Manasam tapaha, Satvikam tapaha, Rajasam tapaha, Tamasam tapaha. And he has classified these various types of tapas that jivas do when they have pindanda, when they are inside a body. And they are trying to do their sadhanas as per their swabhavas. Gita has classified all that. Okay, so that is interesting. So the body is functioning, we have tapas, we do alochana. And that is what is intuitional knowledge about, isn't it? So we can do all sorts of experiments in a laboratory, but that will not give us the inner truths. The inner truths always come from inside, which is intuitional knowledge, which happens when we are in tapas. Okay. So now Angirasa says, even this tapas that is created by Paramatma happens, and if you want to do the tapas in the right direction, you need to have Shraddha. Even that Shraddha, the concept of Shraddha, the ideas of Shraddha was also created by Paramatma. So I've just put a question mark there. Who wants to tell us what Shraddha is? So what is Shraddha?
Focus.
Focus, Sudarshan. Thank you. Anybody else?
Faith. Shraddha means faith.
Shraddha means faith.
Faith, belief.
Belief. Fantastic. Thank you. Anybody else?
Devotion. Is it acceptance of the fact that there's something beyond comprehension?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Suresh ji. Yeah, all three of us got ideas correct. I think Suresh was more spot on. Anybody else? Sorry.
In this, somewhere I read it is about admiration. I don't know.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, Devalji, for sharing that.
So
Okay.
I'll offer one more. I think it's a combination of faith and sincerity.
Faith and sincerity. Harish, thank you. So yeah, lots of very valid and interesting ideas that are coming through. So let us think about the Shraddha, what it is, because in these verses, these are very important. Yeah. So tapascha, Shraddha, Satyam, Brahmacharyam, Vidishta. These are all the prerequisites for us to make philosophical journey. These are prerequisites to make sadhanas. Yeah. So what is that Shraddha? So let's start off with getting friends to think about Gita verse 439 and Gita verse 9.3. So who wants to take up 439? Harish, go for it. So 439,
Shraddhavan labate jnanam tatparam sanyatendriyaha jnanam labdva param shantim achirenadi gacchati.
Thank you, Harish. So Shraddhavan labate jnanam. Yeah. So the one that has the Shraddha is the one that actually has the hope of getting the knowledge. Yeah, jnanam. That jnanam can be aparoksha jnanam. Yeah, that knowledge can be the shreyas, the jnana that we need to know, the direction we need to follow, and ultimately we can have aparoksha jnanam also. Yeah, Shraddhavan labate jnanam. Who wants to take us 9.3? The one who does not have Shraddha, what happens to him is what Krishna says in 9.3. Who wants to take that up?
Yeah, I can do.
Yeah, go for it, Neetaji.
Ashraddhadhanaः purusha dharmasyasya parantapa aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani.
Thank you, Neetaji. Beautiful. So Krishna, amazing verse 9.3. Ashraddhadanaha, he who does not have Shraddha, there is no scope for him. He will never reach me. Krishna has said that very, very clearly. And what happens to him? Mrityu samsara vartmani. Vartmani means round and round in circles of what? Birth and death, birth and death. You keep on. Nitaram vartante. Nivartante, there is nitaram vartante. Mrityu samsara vartmani. Aprapya mam. So these are very, very clear verses from Gita. So Ashraddhadana and Shraddhavan labate. So that concept of Shraddha is essential for us even to do the tapas. Yeah, we need to start off with that Shraddha. And in fact, the Corinthians of the Testament says, "For we walk by faith, not by sight." Yeah, that is a very important statement, probably inspired by these ancient Vedic views on all this of what the faith actually is. It is not blind faith. The faith is discussed in Keno Upanishad. What is that faith? Avijnatam vijanatam, vijnatam avijanatam. So as Suresh ji mentioned, that faith, there are things that exist beyond our perception. So that is the first point. So if, for example, we say that what we perceive is all that exists, so that is the materialistic view. If we say that is all is there in the material existence, that is a very superficial, misinformed, rather stupid view. Yeah. There are far more things that exist that is beyond the purview of our perception. So that is what we need to first understand. And we grasp that idea, that is the Shraddha. So we can say there must be an efficient cause of this universe. I am not able to see it now, but it should be there. But I will then do tapas and then try and find out. Then I have a scope of Shraddhavan labate jnanam tatparaha. So very logical there, that I hope you are able to appreciate what it is that Angirasa is telling us. So you need tapas, tapa alochane for bigger things. But to start the tapas, you need to have Shraddha first. And the Shraddha is what? That there are things beyond my purview of perception. Okay. Then there is a scope of knowing what is the truth or the tat satyam. Who is that satyam? Tade tat satyam, who is the janmadhyasya yataha. So then there is the scope of knowing this person. Okay. So, and again, here I'm giving, I've just put this all in a logical sequence. So we have Shraddha, faith in the existence of things beyond the scope of a perception. And with that faith, we do tapa alochane. We start thinking about this higher purpose of life. Okay. But how do we do this? We do it in the framework of what is called brahmacharya. Okay. So what is that brahmacharyam? Katha Upanishad gives a beautiful verse, isn't it? Sarve Vedaha yat padamamananti tapamsi sarvani yad vadanti yad icchanto brahmacharyam charanti tatte padam sangrahena bravimi omityetat. And that great philosophy of Yama goes to Nachiketa, starting from this verse when he is talking about when Nachiketa is asked for the third boon. Okay. So that brahmacharyam becomes very important. And what is that brahmacharyam? Not just celibacy. Okay. Celibacy is one meaning, and it is a very superficial meaning, but an important meaning. What is that celibacy all about? No distraction. Indriya nigraha, as much as we need to do. Okay. Celibacy, no distraction, and Indriya nigraha is one view of brahmacharyam. But Brahma, as we know, is Brahma means what? That which is big. Vedas are infinite, they are big. So Vedas are also called Brahma. And of course, our Brahman is humongous, so he is called Brahman. So when you study the Vedas, that is called Brahmacharyam. So with no distraction, Indriya Nigraha, we study the Vedas, then what we happen? We know the Brahman. That is also Brahmanicharya. Okay, so the Brahmacharyam is very beautiful. It's a sequence of celibacy, study of the Vedas to know Brahman. So then the question is, are we all brahmacharyas or not? We are now grihasthas, and maybe some brahmacharyas in this group, but most of us are grihasthas. Are we not brahmacharyas? Absolutely yes. So that thingy about Brahma, the various ashramas are helpful. Think about that. But here the brahmacharya is the second one that I'm talking, all the three I'm talking about. When we are a grihastha, we still have to practice indriya nigraha as much as required. Okay? And we still need to study the Vedas so as to know the Brahman. So the brahmacharya is a word that basically, you know, it talks about all those who are in the path of spiritual journey. Brahmacharyam. Adhyayana is charyam. Brahma means Veda or the Paramatma. So Shraddha and tapas. Now for this tapas, there is a framework in which we do. That is the brahmacharya. So, and again, vidishta. So, vidhi and niseja, what are the rules and regulations? How do you need to conduct this and that? Are all in the Vedas. And again, that's what we have done before. Is it tasmacha devaha, rig ejum shamani. So, the whole Vedas come out from Brahman. And the Brahman puts in the Vedas itself, there are all the vidhis and nishedas, do's and don'ts that are there in the Vedas, so that we do our brahmacharya with the shraddha that there is an existence of a being beyond our perception, that is the tapas, then we have a scope. So that is all we are doing with our pindanda. We are in the sadhana sharira, where there is prana and apano that's happening. That is the metabolism that is happening with the food that we are eating. That goes to the mind, where we start doing the tapas with the shraddha, brahmacharyam, vidishtam. And Angirasa is saying, have you actually thought about this? And who brought all this in creation? How did tapas came? What is this tapas? Where did it come? What is shraddha? Where did it come? What is this brahmacharyam? Where did this come? What is this vidhi? Where did this come? Everything this Paramatma has done for us. Yet we don't do anything. Yet we are so busy in our own mundane materialistic achievements that we don't think about these bigger issues. But Angirasa is asking Shuanaka to look at these ideas. Yeah. So how do you then do this? Is the next line is probably we need some time to think about the next line. I'll try and do a few slides on the next verse, the 8th verse, because here he has given everything about the Pindanda as to how things are done. Okay, so the next one he gives this beautiful verse, Sapta Pranaha Prabhavanti Tasmad. Saptarchishaha, Samidaha, Saptahomaha, Sapta ime lokaha, Yeshu charanti pranaha, Guha ashaya, Nihitaha, Sapta. Yeah, amazing verse. This is an incredible verse, if you ask me. So it is Sapta everywhere. Sapta pranaha, Prabhavanti tasmat. So this Pindanda is there, this body is there, right? Now we have decided we are going to do brahmacharya, we have the shraddha, we are going to do tapas. Okay, fine. We will follow vidhi, niseda, everything. But how are you going to do this? Your body has to be endowed with a few things so that you are able to do this, right? So even that Paramatma created, says the Angirasa to Shuanaka. So this is interesting. So far, I've been talking to you about Pancha Pranaha. Okay, so I've told you so much about Pancha Prana, 5 pranas. So now Angirasa is introducing what appears to be a confusing term, Sapta Pranaha. He's saying 7 pranas made. So there is the 5 pranas, Prana, Apana, Udana, Samana, Vyana, and all that. Now Angirasa says Sapta Pranaha is also there in your body. Okay, so what is this Sapta Pranaha? Okay, so this is important, and I hope my aim over the next 15-20 minutes is to introduce this concept of pranas also have other meanings, and it all has to be seen in context. So if you look at Skanda Purana, just excuse me, I've got an IT issue here. Okay, so if you look at Skanda Purana, that talks about Saptaiva Marutaha Bahyo Pranaha Sapta Tada Atmani. Then there is another one called Kaundinya Shruti that says Dwadasha va etat pranaha dwadasha masaha. So Dwadasha va etat pranaha. There are 12 pranas, says Kaundinya Shruti. Whereas Mundaka Upanishad, Atharva Veda says Sapta pranaha. There are 7 pranas. So there's a huge confusion for us. One is, what is this prana that is being discussed? Whether it is 7, whether it is 12, or whether it is 5, what is it that is going on? Okay. So these discussions happen in the Shastra Abhyasa, and our Guru Veda Vyasa has actually done an Adhikaranam in the Brahma Sutra. It's called Saptagatya Adhikaranam. Om Saptagater Visheshitattvacha Hastadayastu Stiter Ato Naivam. 2 sutras he composed for us to understand who the Sapta Pranaha is. Okay, I've given the reference here. Check this out. But beautiful. And I think when we do our Upanishad Chintana, wherever we can, we have to bring Veda Vyasa's Vedanta Sutra to understand, because otherwise there is no point. We have to use the Prasthana Trayas, right? Sutra Prasthana, Gita Prasthana, and Upanishad Prasthana, which is what hopefully we are doing as we are navigating the Mundaka Upanishad. So what is the Pranaha? So what I want you to understand here is this prana that is being discussed is different from the Pancha Pranas. It is the 7 Indriyas. The 7 Indriyas are the sense organs that we have. So the sense organs also are called pranas. Okay, Sapta Pranaha Prabhavanti Tasmad. So all the sense organs also have come from him. is what Angirasa is saying. Okay, so the Acharya, for example, is saying Jnana Indriya Apekshaya Saptatvam. Okay. So what does that mean? So look at the sutra. Let's do the Brahma Sutras here very briefly. Saptagater Visheshi Tattva. So Veda Vyasa says, go to this Mundaka Upanishad. This particular verse that we are currently doing, it says Sapta Pranaha. So Gate, there is a word there called Gate. So our Acharya says, look at that word Gati. Gati means what? Elevation. Gati, to go, to know, knowledge. Okay. Elevation. How do you get knowledge? Through 7 sense organs. Yeah, that is what is Saptagater Visheshitatvacha. Okay, Jnana Indriya Apekshaya Saptatvam. Okay, so the 7 sense organs constituted for the purpose of producing knowledge, which will elevate us, it also comes from Brahman. Whereas there is in the next sutra, he says, Hastadayastu stiter ato naivam. Hasta means what? Hands. What do we do with hands? We do karmas. Karma, we are not doing nishkama karma. We are doing only sakama karma. So karma indriyas do what? Stitaha. They stagnate. Stita means we are stationed here. Okay. If you do use the karma indriyas to do sakamya karmas, we are in stagnation. That is going through philosophies. So that is the karma indriyas. Whereas the jnana indriyas, if done properly, they elevate us. So last week we had all these great discussions about jnana yoga, karma yoga, bhakti yoga and all that. So you have to bring that all in context here. Yeah. So this jnana indriya. So I got a question here. So if you want to do tapas, if you want to have shraddha, and if you want to do brahmacharyam to get knowledge, then if you want to follow other vidhis and so on, then you need to use the instruments in your Pindanda, right, to do all this. So they are called indriyas. We all have indriyas or sense organs. And here, Mundaka Upanishad, Angirasa says, there are primarily 7 sense organs that you use for gaining knowledge and moving forwards. Okay, so any thoughts here from our satsang with regards to what those 7 sense organs may be? Anybody wants to go here? Anand.
I think there are 5 Jnanendriyas and Manas and Buddhi.
Beautiful. Thank you, Anand. Fantastic. Perfect answer. 100%. So, that is what it is. Okay. So, here we need to bring our Katha Upanishad, which is amazing, isn't it? Again, the Samanvaya is absolutely 100% when you look at any Upanishad. So, Mundaka Upanishad talks about Sapta Pranaha. So, Katha Upanishad says what? It gives the analogy of the chariot, right? Atmanam ratinam viddhi, shariram ratamevatu, buddhim tu saratim viddhi, manaha pragraham yevacha, indriyani hayanahuhu vishayanteshu gocharan. Perfect example that Yama has given to Nachiketa here. The 5 horses, the 5 sense organs. The reins of this chariot is the mind, and the charioteer is the buddhi or the intellect. So these guys are 7. Then, of course, there is the passenger who is driving here in this chariot called the body, right? This charioteer is the soul, and of course, inside him is the antaryama. So the charioteer is the soul. These are all the soul, and the jiva is very beautifully described here. But what we are currently looking at is the sadhana sharira or the pindanda, which has 7 components. Okay? These 7 components are the ones that give us the jnana. Okay? So what are these? What is happening to these horses? Indriyani hayanahu. Hayan means horse. Okay? Vishayanteshu gocharan. So they're going towards their respective sense objects. So these 5 indriyas are going towards their sense objects. All these damn things are created by Paramatma. Okay, they are all created by Paramatma. So when you look at this equation, which would be very easy for us from a neurophysiological perspective. So you have all these sense objects outside, external sense objects. Then we are having the sadhana sharira endowed with 5 jnana indriyas. So these jnana indriyas convey these signals from the sense objects to the brain. The brain processes it, does something, and then gives it to the mind component, which then again processes it further, gives it to the intellect. Okay. And then the intellect passes it on to the soul. So there is a deeper philosophical question that probably we will handle in the next 10-15 minutes. Okay. Who receives knowledge? Okay? This is a basic philosophical question. We are getting knowledge of the external world, right? Who is receiving that knowledge and saying, oh, now I have the knowledge of this rose? Who is doing that? Okay? And there are folks who debate about this fundamental problem as to who receives the knowledge. Okay? So from one school of Vedanta, it is the soul that receives the knowledge and becomes aware of the external world, because the symptom of the soul is consciousness. Consciousness is the awareness of things that is not only outside us and maybe inside us also. Is awareness of things is consciousness, and soul. Consciousness is the symptom of the soul. So it is the soul that is aware of the knowledge. Okay? So this jiva, which is there in this pindanda, so in this equation here, everything is material, okay? So the sense objects is material, these indriyas are material, the brain is material, mind is material, intellect is material. There are 7 components. They are all made of matter. That is why you have Krishna talking about all the sattvika, rajasa, tamasa, and all that of the material gunas that the brain can go into, the mind can go into various states, is what Krishna talks there. But they are all what is called as a non-eternal indriyas. Then from one particular school of Vedanta, there is an elaborate discussion of the soul itself has its non-material indriyas. And that is eternally present with the souls. They're called eternal indriyas that the souls have, which is non-material. So that is another idea. I'm just inserting that thought, not particularly required for the current discussions. But Sapta Pranaha essentially means the 7 sense organs for gaining knowledge. Okay. Here I want to remind you again, there is another beautiful verse from Katha Upanishad. And Katha Upanishad says, look, these sense organs are there, but they are always facing outside. They are always facing outside. That is another beautiful philosophical idea. We are not, our sense organs are not facing inwards to go, oh, where is the jiva, where is antaryamin? We are not facing that. We are always facing outside. Paranchikani, Vyatrunate, Swayambhuhu, Tasmat, Parang Pashyati, Na Antaratman. Kaschid dhiraha pratyagatmanam aikshat avruta chakshuhu amrutatvam. Go back to that verse, this amazing verse. Paranchikani Vyatrinate. The Paranchi means facing outwards. Okay. So anybody wants to come here, why is it that Paramatma has given this pindanda with the sense organs of knowledge, which is always facing outwards? It is not facing inwards. Why is that system that has been established here? Anybody has any thoughts on that? Think about Katha Upanishad. What does it tell? It gives you 2 paths and all that, right? Okay, so that external facing is because this samsara, as our Upanishad says, always this is an examination. Yeah, you have to pass this examination called the samsara, the jivas. And the jivas, as per their swabhavas, use the external facing indriyas to follow 2 directions, as discussed in Katha Upanishad. Either they follow the path of prayers, which appears to be pleasant, or they follow the path of Shreyas, which is towards Paramatma, because they want to attain salvation. So those are the 2 paths that is given. And for the 2 paths, the starting point is the Indriyas are facing forwards. One guy does satsang, whereas the other guy goes to the clubs. So those are the 2 things that happens. So the one that goes to satsangs does this journey initially outwards, but then eventually inwards. Yeah, that is what the Katha Upanishad talks about. So Indriya, Sapta Pranaha means the 7 Indriyas, that is the 5 sense organs of knowledge, mind and intellect, forms the 7 Sapta Pranaha Prabhavanti Tasma. They all emerge from him. Okay. So here again, where are the Jnana Indriyas? So this is an again fundamental question. So now we understood from this slide that you got all these sense organs, right? Eyes, ears, tongue, nose, and touch. Okay. So, but actually, where are these? Okay. Is this eye here is actually the indriya for the seeing? Is the hearing really the indriyas? Because if you think about it, we see through our eyes, we hear through the ears, we taste through our tongue, we think through our mind is what we say. Yeah. So that is another concept that we need to understand with regards to where are the Jnana Indriyas. And I just want to remind you here So this is the level in which Angirasa is asking us to think about. So when we were in Pralaya in Paramatma's womb, we were always there with the Linga Sharira, with our karmic imprints and the ignorance. That is always there. There was never a point where we did not have the Linga Sharira. Okay. Then the creation for us is what we acquire, Sukshma and Stula Shariras. So if you look at Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya, Manonmaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya, we just need to bring everything into this equation. Aap, Prithvi, Vayu, Tejas, Akasas together form the Stula Sharira. Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara, Sukshma Sharira. And Chitta, Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara, Chitta, Sukshma Sharira. Whereas the Chetana forms the Linga Sharira, which is equivalent to the Anandamaya Kosha. So think about these problems. So the Vedic Rishi's view is our Indriyas are actually in the Sukshma Sharira. Yeah, this is important because when the classic example is the dead body. A dead body still has the eyes. The dead body still has the ear, tongue, and nose and touch and the skin. Yeah, but it doesn't feel anything because the jiva is gone. The jiva goes with the sukshma sharira when it leaves the body. So it is the sukshma sharira where the actual indriyas are. And these are just, and our teachers tell us that these are like magnifying glasses. The eyes, ears, they are all the magnifying glasses that convey the information that is processed by the Sukshma Sharira. Now, the reason why you want to do this is, again, I want to bring this great ideas of our rishis. So here in the first line, Sapta Pranaha is said. And in the last line, it talks about Guha, Ashaya, Nihitaha, Sapta Sapta. Okay. So this is very beautiful because Angirasa is saying, why are these sense organs? Why are these sense organs? And why is it placed for what purpose? And he says, you know, in the Guha, Ashaya Nihita, in the Guha, there is something for its knowledge, for it to gain its knowledge is why all these 7 external sense organs are placed. Okay. So Guha means what? The cave in the heart. So that should take us to the concept of who obtains the knowledge and where is this person, where is this entity that obtains the knowledge? Where is the jiva? Okay, anybody wants to, this is a revision from all that we have done in Mandukya Upanishad, for example. So who wants to tell us? I've told you that it is the jiva that receives the knowledge, but where is this jiva in the body? Anybody wants to share their ideas and thoughts on where is this jiva in the body? Guha Ashaya, Guhashaya Nihitaha. So even the size of the jivas is described in Shvetashvatara Upanishad, as we know. And its position is also discussed in various other Upanishads. So if you look at Prashna Upanishad, Anand and Pragnesh, Anand, go first.
So the jiva is said to reside in the heart, or some say it could be slightly above that, somewhere near thymus gland.
Thank you. Pragnesh?
Same, thymus gland just close to heart.
Beautiful. Thank you. So heart, heart is interesting one. So heart, and we've discussed this so many times.
Inverted lotus is also mentioned in some of the.
Yeah. Thank you, Deval. Excellent. So beautiful. Yeah, all correct.
Madhye, they say. The jiva is present with the Hrid Kamala Madhye.
Hrit Kamala Madhyavarti. Thank you, Pratibhaji. Excellent. So yeah, so all of us got this right. So the heart is a bit of a misnomer, to be honest. So the Sanskrit word is Hrit. Hrit is what has become heart in English. Hrit means a middle portion of the body. That is all it means. When you say Hrit, Hridi hi esha atma. Prashna Upanishad, third question. So this is what is being the, where is the jiva? Hridi hi esha atma. This jiva atma is in the Hridi, Hrit, in the middle portion of the body. Okay. Whereas Brahman is also in the same place. Taittiriya Upanishad says, Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman. Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan Atma Yasya Janto Nihito Guhayam. Okay. So Dahara Vidya Chandogya, we have discussed this so many times. Brahmapure Daharam Pundarikam Vashema. So there is this organ, Chandogya Upanishad, Dahara Vidya actually tells us, yes, Hrit is middle portion of the body. So you have the anterior mediastinum, posterior mediastinum, and the middle mediastinum. So where is it, is the question. Okay. So there our Chandogya Upanishad, Dahara Vidya says, in that Hrit, middle portion of your body, there is an organ that Devalji mentioned, which is like an inverted lotus. Pundarikam. It is of the shape of the inverted lotus. The closest organ, which is like the internal lotus, is the thymus gland. Okay. So as Pragnesh ji and Anand ji rightly mentioned, it is the thymus gland that is being discussed here. Yeah. Yeah. So thymus gland is what? Thymus gland in Mandukya Upanishad is beautifully discussed. Is that yatra supto na kashtana kamam kamayate na kashtana swapnam pashyati yena suptam. So it is that in the sushupti state, the jiva is in close embrace with the Paramatma, and that jiva is in the thymus gland, is what is discussed in the Mandukya Upanishad. So what is that correspond to? Pragneshti is the expert on this. So you have Agnya Chakra, which is on the pineal gland. We have the Vishuddha Chakra that corresponds to the thyroid gland. Then you have the Anahata Chakra, which corresponds to the thymus gland. So Vishuddha is thyroid, Anahata is thymus gland, which is described in the Mandukya Upanishad, which corresponds to the Sushupti state of consciousness of the Jivas. So when you put all this in the equation, we understand that this is a cave in the thymus where the Jiva is, and the Jiva is surrounded by what? Linga Sharira and the Sukshma Sharira. And then you have the gross body, which includes the thymus gland and everything else in the brain and the mind and the intellect. Yeah, I mean the brain, not the brain and the mind, but the brain, not the mind, the brain, and all other gross aspects that are there. But the jiva is in the thymus gland, in that space covered by linga sharira and sukshma sharira. That is what guhashaya nihitaha. The sapta pranaha has been created. Prabhavanti tasmat, for what? For this guhashaya, to gain knowledge. So let us look at, we have to think about it from a sacrifice perspective, isn't it? So we'll finish this with this. So we have what? We have Shrotra, Tvak, Rasana, Grahana, and Chakshus. Those are the 5 sense organs. Their corresponding sense objects, what? For Chakshus, anything that has a form, Rupa. For hearing, the sound. For touch, it is the Sparsha. For the taste, it is the Rasana. Okay. For the smell, it is Gandha, which gives Grahana. For Chakshus, it is the Rupa. So you have the sense organs and the sense objects. For mind, it is the Sankalpa. And for the intellect, it is the Nirnaya, to make the decision. Those are the corresponding objects. Mind, Sankalpa, intellect, Nirnaya. So we use all this to gain knowledge. And the beauty of this is, because we are talking about yajna here, we are talking about fire sacrifice, and we spoke about fire sacrifice, actually reminding us of the creatorship of Brahman. The same fire sacrifice, a yajna, can be contemplated as what is happening in our indriyas for obtaining knowledge. So that is where Angirasa is taking us to reach that point, which we will do in the next subsequent sessions. We need to understand what Sapta Pranaha is, what is Guhashaya Nihitaha. So as we said, these 7, they follow either the sense objects, which is prayers, or they follow this object called Paramatma, which is Shreyas, whereas this is called prayers. Okay. So what we will do in the next session is, I finish right on the dot. So what we will do in the next session is, we will think about what is this various. So this is what is it. It says Saptarchishihi Samidaha Sapta Archishaha Samidaha Sapta Homaha Sapta Ime Lokaha Yeshu Charanti Pranaha Guhashaya Nihitaha Sapta. So 7. This, everywhere the Pindandas, there is number 7 coming up. And our Angirasa will link this all up with the Homa now. Now they links it up with the Yajna. And says all these things come from Paramatma. Okay? And once he has talked about the Pindanda, then he goes to the Jada Tattvas. Then in the following verse, he'll talk about all the Jadas that have been created. So remember, this particular Khanda is about all the things that have been created in the universe from Paramatma. That is the focus, and it gives through, it's a very intricate, detailed discussion of what is going on. So hopefully, I hope you found this interesting. So on that note, Krishna Pranamastu. If we have any questions, we can take it up now. So Pragnesh, go for it. You put something there.
Yes, this is a very materialistic, but also in one of my studies, I learned that Leonardo da Vinci was trying to find the seat of soul, and in anatomical dissection found floor of the third ventricle where we currently feel hypothalamus and other nuclei are there, is also one of the Western philosophy and science as a cephalocentric soul, while many other Antakaran and other people have that the cardio heart is the seat of soul. Just a scientific debate.
Interesting,
Thank you.
interesting. Thank you. And I know Sudarshan is in the audience. He likes the sinoatrial node of the heart as well. Anand.
Two questions, Madhuji. One is, so do we understand that all the indriyas, the real indriyas, are present on the soul, and the common indriyas we talk about on the material body, they are like magnifying glasses? Number two, I didn't get who gets the knowledge. Is it the soul or is it something else?
Yeah. So what's your view, Anandji? Who gets the soul? Does the brain get the knowledge?
Absolutely
The
not.
intellect gets the knowledge, or somebody else gets the knowledge?
It has to be soul. It has to be
It
soul.
has to be soul. Yeah, I would agree with you, because it's only a sentient being that is capable of self-initiated action and also to have the knowledge. A stone does not get the knowledge. The stone is just there. It doesn't receive the knowledge and say, oh, I am sitting on this mountain, or rain is falling on me. It doesn't get that knowledge. Yeah? So brain is also like a stone. It is a jada. It cannot get the knowledge. Only the soul can get the knowledge, is the view of Veda Vyasa. So that is absolutely fine. And the first question, Anandji, that you were talking about, and our gurus teach us that the eyes and the nose and everything that is there in this face at this point, that is only a very superficial magnifying glass. The real sense organs are actually in the Sukshma Sharira, because that is important, because you would have heard about many near-death experiences that have been documented in the literature. Near-death experience where somebody has a cardiac arrest and this fellow moves out of the body and sitting on some corner and watching all these events that is going on when the cardiac arrest is going on. There is a documentation of somebody, I can't remember the author who documents this, is about a person who is blind from birth, has a cardiac arrest, and then after she is revived, she is able to describe who are all the people who came into that cardiorespiratory resuscitation room and did what and so on. But she was totally blind with her gross indriyas, but she was able to see this, all the things that has happened. That's a classic example to illustrate why the indriyas are actually in the Sukshma Sharira. That is the material indriyas that the soul has as it travels. But of course, there is another indriya that our acharyas talk about, is the eternal indriyas of the soul. Because once the soul is emancipated and gone into Vaikuntha, it is not sitting there idle with doing nothing. It is still enjoying the company of Paramatma. And for that enjoyment of being in company of Paramatma, it needs its indriyas, and that is called Swarupa indriyas. The Swarupa indriyas is one which is an eternal, non-material indriyas of the jivas, whereas the material indriyas primarily are on the Sukshma Sharira. Your indriyas that are there on the head is only a magnifying glass, is what our teachers remind. I hope that makes sense. Kavita, you had a question, Kavita ji?
Yeah, yes, I don't know whether it's a very basic question. I've always been wondering about this. Are we talking about the material thymus gland? I mean, that is one thing when you talk about the soul situated in the thymus gland. Are we talking about the material gland?
Yeah,
so
yes, Kavita ji, material thymus gland, and that's very interesting in its own right, because I think we're going with the evidence of what is available in the Vedas.
Yeah, so
Vedas
what happens
Sorry?
in thymectomy? No, we do thymectomy, right? When there's thymoma and in myasthenia gravis, in very severe case, we do thymectomy.
Yeah, but that's true. There's always exceptions to the rule, isn't it? There's always exceptions to the, when you do thymoma, when somebody has a thymoma with myasthenia gravis and all the autoimmune problems, and then you do thymectomy and regulate, what happens to the soul? It probably goes somewhere. So we have to ask only Paramatma to say where exactly it is. It goes to the nadis. Okay, so there is also a discussion of the jivas as how they go into the various nadis as well. Yeah. So there is the concept of nadis that is there. So that is a very rare exception, Kavita ji, about what happens when you remove the thymus. But your first question about, is it the material thymus? Yes, it is the material thymus. And again, we have discussed this before in the sense that makes a lot of sense, because during embryogenesis, The thymus is the organ that is involved in differentiation of self from the non-self. So all the self antigens are all, they get processed, isn't it, in the thymocytes that are present in the thymus, so that then the immune system is able to recognize what is self. And when there is an external antigen that comes in, it is able to elicit an immune response. So the concept of self and non-self actually comes from the thymus during embryogenesis. And sometimes I wonder whether rishis had intuited all this, because they said that that self is there in the thymus, and they have linked it up with the Dahara Vidya, they have linked it up with the Prashna Upanishad and the Mandukya Upanishad. It's a fascinating discussion. At the end of the day, where the soul is, we will have to go with only what the Vedas are telling us, and Vedas are Aporushya. We have accepted with our Shraddha that Vedas is the supreme source of knowledge, and it is the most authoritative knowledge. And if the Vedas say so, it must be so. And also when we put all the medical and physiological information in context, it appears to make sense. Neetaji.
Yeah, thank you.
The point raised by who gains knowledge, soul. I think in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna mentions that whatever you've gained, you will continue. When Arjuna asks what happens if we cannot fulfill and cannot attain all the knowledge in this janma, so you carry this Adhyatma knowledge to the next janmas. So that's why I wanted to say that it's not the body or the soul is what.
Thank you for sharing that. Amazing, Neetaji. Thank you. Devan?
A sort of, though I know we are talking about what is written in the Vedas, but it doesn't make sense with what the contemporary knowledge, whatever little bit we have about brain sciences. Because if you are saying that the mind and the buddhi is with in the Sukshma Sharira with the Jiva, and the Jiva is in the thymus. Most studies actually also identify intelligent areas of the brain which are responsible for memory and intellect. So how do you then explain that?
Sure, Devalji. So memory and all that is also, I'll tell you my perspective on this. So the memory and so on, they're all, mnemons or whatever it's called, they're all neural circuits that is there. The neural circuits may be in the brain, okay? So again, our gurus tell us the brain is like the computer, okay, whereas the soul is the operator of that. The computer may be the jiva may be using it as a software to try and process the information. So the neural circuits may be in the brain, but then the question of who is experiencing that neural circuits, yeah, that is what we're talking, right? So somebody must be there who is experiencing those neural circuits and then says, I've now got the knowledge. So that is where the discussion is. Who is the experiencer of knowledge? Experiencer of the awareness of something that exists. Okay? So from that perspective, it feels like it cannot be a stone. Neural circuits and nerve cells are also jadas. Yeah, electric impulses are also jada. They are also non-sentient. So somebody there must be there who experiences is the thinking of that. Yeah, Harshad Dake.
So sorry. So just to complete that. So is there could there be an inverted lotus shaped something in the brain? Is what my question was alluding.
It could be, but the Vedas are not saying that. For us, Vedas is supreme source of authority, and the Prashna Upanishad has said, "Hrid hi esha atma." It is said hrid in the middle portion of your body. Brain is not the middle portion of the body. Middle portion of the body is the mediastinal area. So that is what the Vedas are saying. You may be right, Devalji. I don't know, but if you go with the Shraddha that what the Vedas are saying is fair enough, then it feels like it is in the middle portion of the body. Harshad.
Thank you. Excellent discourse. I'm getting a little confused, and excuse me for my lack of knowledge perhaps on this topic, but a follow-up question to what we've been discussing is that if the Atma is the experiencer of knowledge, I get that. What causes it to detach itself from this knowledge? Is it its association with the Stula Sharira?
Sorry, Harshadji, I didn't quite catch that question. The soul can never be detached from knowledge. It is always in knowledge. It always has knowledge. In a samsara situation, it gets the knowledge of the external world. But in liberation, it has the self-realization is the awareness of its own swabhava, which is the knowledge of itself is the self-realization. And God realization is when it has the knowledge of the Paramatma, which is called aparoksha jnana at the samsara state, but in the moksha sthiti, it is always aware of the knowledge of Paramatma. So the souls, there is never a point where souls don't have knowledge. They always have the knowledge. So in samsara, they are preoccupied with the knowledge of the external world. But in liberation, they are aware of their own self-knowledge or self-realization, and God knowledge or God realization is how we would approach this. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, okay. That's much clearer. Thank you.
Thank you. Pragnesh.
I bring chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita. We did a quiz on that. And in the second sloka, this is the Jnana Vijnana Yoga. There was a question about the difference between Jnana and Vijnana. In reference to the questions on knowledge, the Jnana is the knowledge of Vedic scriptures, where the Vijnana is the knowledge of the transcendental spiritual awareness of Supreme Lord. So people also get confused, not in this group, because these are very learned people, but sometime in a different material world, people do not differentiate between information and knowledge. And we are talking about Rutambara Prajna here. So that's the highest level of knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Pragnesh. Very nice. Excellent. So great discussions. If there
Yeah.
are no
Madhu,
further, yeah.
Madhu, I just wanted to say, when you mentioned about the Prodhasanam, there is a thought that the word bread came from the Prodhasanam.
Absolutely, Sudarshan. Very, very nice for reminding us. So bread comes from Purodasha. Absolutely right. Thank you, Sudarshan. Fantastic. So on that note, Harish, could you take us through Om recitation, please? Great stuff. Great interactive session today. So we will pick up the ideas of the philosophy of sevens in the next session. So join us for another interactive satsang. Hare Krishna. And stay safe.
Thank
Hare
you. Thank you.
Srinivas, Hare.
Krishna.
Hare Namo.
Thank you very much. Hare Namo.